Zone Ads, World of Local Business Info.
I want to celebrate this anniversary and also share my knowledge with you guys. Thank you for that. So we'll have those two sessions like I mentioned earlier. So the first one, I'll just explain you guys how to keep your basic aquarium. Not a planted, but if you probably start with your goldfish or your mollies or guppies. So how you can set it up and what are some basic things you need. And over and above that, what are the additional accessories that you can add. Right? So with that, we'll get started. And maybe now it's around 11:10, so maybe for a next hour or so, we'll continue with this one. I'll take questions. You can ask me questions even in between, and then we'll move forward. Are we still waiting for Ayush, Ikshita? Oh, fine. Okay, so first thing first. So people, you might be seeing you have your fish and it's in the water, and also it passes with poop and shit and everything in the same water. So the first question that should come to you is, how is it able to live in such kind of water, right? Because it has a lot of impurities, it has ammonia content, nitrate, whatever. So the magic actually happens inside your filter or inside your substrate. So that's where you have something called as, so the larger the surface area of your filter, the more your bacteria will colonize in your tank, right? So that is the main thing which will actually reduce the ammonia content and also the nitrites to nitrate, which is not so poisonous as ammonia and nitrate. So that is where the concept of cycling starts. So whenever your fish is put in your water and it starts pooping, so that's the start of your nitration cycle. So you can either get some very hard fish which will be able to survive that ammonia and nitrate levels, or you can actually start with something like your artificial bacteria. So there are many in your market. You know, something like ADA Bacter is one of the most prime product which is there. Then you have something from Aquatic Remedies called Microlife S2. So you should be adding a capful every day for 5 days, and end of the 5th day you will see your tank mature, right? So one way to actually identify whether your tank is ready or not is, there will be a brief period where your water will turn very cloudy, like as if you are just put milk into your water. So that's where most of the people get afraid and they start changing water. In fact, that's the right period where your bacteria is actually blooming, and it's so much that it's actually showing up in your water column. So what will happen is, after a day or two, it will subside and most of it will finally colonize in that sponge filter. So that's why the sponge filters are most essential part. It's not that it's doing your job of your RO filter or your drinking water filter where it's just cleaning the impurities or dust particles, but this is called biological filtration. Yeah. Now, like I just said, the mechanical filtration, right? So if you take something like a power filter, what it will actually do is it will bring out some circulation in your tank. So the water will keep circulating all the time and it will get accumulated in this particular sponge. Yeah. So that way you can keep cleaning the sponge, and every week or maybe after every couple of weeks, and that way the shit or the dirt content in your tank will be lesser compared to this one here. But there is again a large advantage of having a big enough sponge versus having a power filter. Yeah? So like I said, more the surface area, more the bacteria, and because more the bacteria, you can also add more fish. And I don't know if you had a brief chance to look at our store, but we'll still have a small tour. So most of our stocking tanks, so they have a sponge filter for that same purpose. Because if I have this, I can have lot more fishes compared to just a sponge filter. So again, it's your decision point whether you want more fishes or you want lesser dirt to show in the tank. Some people have both, and it's their preference. But this is the main criteria for having whichever filter you're going to choose. Fish types that you can add, in the starting days. So many of you might have heard about guppies. You might have added them in your small bowls or in your lotus pond, lily pond kind of places. So they are again quite hardy fish to start with. Not those very exotic albino variants which are a bit fragile, but most of them are again quite hardy. Then you have your barbs, like your tiger barbs, you have your rosy barbs, and you also have your glow fishes like widow tetras, right? So these guys are again pretty hardy and good fish to start your tank. So start with those and wait for a couple of weeks, see that they are stable and your tank is cycle, and then try to add any other compatible fish again. So for example, if you take barbs, so barbs again go well with barbs alone, not with a goldfish. Yeah. So like I said, tiger barb is good, rosy barb. Then you have cherry barbs, which are very bright, like that kid's shirt color. So they grow that bright red. So those are again pretty good ones. Then you have something like melon barbs. Again, they are color of a watermelon. So even they grow quite big, and perhaps not suitable for this one, but a much larger aquarium. So that is one good family to start, barbs family. Then you also have your tetras, like your glow tetra is actually a widow tetra in real life. So people did some experiments on it and they changed their colors. But so again, widow tetras are quite hardy tetras to have. Then you have your serpe tetras, the bright orange colored ones. Even they are pretty good. And you have many of them like neons and all. So you can start with those as well. But again, most of the time you will be seeing people start with a goldfish. So if you are buying a goldfish, try to see their maximum size that they'll get to, because they are not going to stay the same couple of inch or 2-inch fish. They'll grow at least to 5 to 6 inch in a 6-month span. So this particular tank, which is like 60 to 70 liters, it's good to start with just 4 goldfish and no other fish at all. So main reasons being because they like to eat a lot, and essentially they'll also poop a lot. So having 2 or 4 goldfish is equivalent to having around 20 tiger barbs or 20 serpe tetra together. So when you are buying a fish, look at the amount of weight it is going to have, how much of poop it is going to pass, rather than just, hey, I have an aquarium there, can I see it from 10 feet away? So don't have that kind of perception. So in this last 1 year, every time people come asking for a small bowl. So generally what I suggest is a betta, a full moon betta or a normal spade tail betta. So what happens is they say, I can't see that fish at all. It's very small. Or maybe I suggest a couple of guppies, a pair of guppies. Again, they complain the same, hey, I can't see them. So it really depends how involved you are with your aquarium. It doesn't need to be far away and you can see a big fish in that. So you should also look at whether your fish is comfortable in that, and then whether it can live its whole life in that. Because people say, hey, I'll start with this small, but eventually I'll upgrade to a bigger tank. But halfway there, it's most probably going to end its life in that same small tank. So think in those aspects. So that's again one reason I don't have very huge fish in my store. If people really have such big tanks, I take a pre-order. I deliver them maybe in a couple of weeks time. But most of the time I have stock which you can put in this 2 feet or maybe at least a 10-inch or 12-inch bowl. So that's with respect to how you can stock your new aquarium, right? Moors, they are like a shape of a goldfish, but they have a very bulging eyes, like telescope. So again, they are fine with your goldfish. Then you can add something like your glow tetras. So even they are quite okay terms of your companions. But don't go with barbs like tiger barb or rosy barb because they are quite boisterous. They'll keep chasing your goldfish. They'll keep nipping the fins of your goldfish. So try to avoid those. Yeah, barbs. And you can mix with few of your tetras as well. But not again small tetras like your neons, again which are quite fragile. So don't go with a neon and a barb. So like I said, goldfish and goldfish go well, not anything more. And if you have a very large pond kind of a setup, then maybe you can add a few more. So you can also add koi carps. You must have seen, if you are on Insta or Facebook, you might have seen a lot of videos about kois in a pond, right? Costing millions of dollars. So those are something again which you can add in your ponds. And maybe if you have a 1,000-gallon pond, that's when you can think about adding a koi and a gold. Do now is because we are the fish spot, because that is the main part of the hobby. So I would just like each one of you to just give an intro, maybe.
I stay here near Yapral.
Okay.
So we have around like a 4-foot tank which my dad got. We used to have a arwana which was a single one. The tank was good for it, and we lost it unfortunately. And after that, my father wanted to add multiple things.
Okay.
So now we have a bunch of discus.
Wow.
And we have, because they float on the above and medium this thing, we added a bunch of tetras to fill.
Okay.
I recently got tetras. I'm having a pair of ghost fish, I don't know why.
Okay.
Because we just like them. And then to keep it a bit to keep the walls alive, we have around 3 pairs of snails, apple snails.
Okay.
And I used to have a other tank for lobsters, and I didn't know I had a tank like this, and not knowingly I put 5 of them together.
Okay,
they started fighting. They started fighting a lot, and first I lost 1 pair, then another, and I ended up with 1. And the one was like so lonely, and I couldn't find a size for it.
Okay.
So I lost that too, and I was like, no, I'm doing it wrong. I have to learn about it, and that's how I ended up here.
Again, lobsters are quite cannibalistic, so if they have an opportunity, they'll prey on their other.
Like I would see those hands and all.
Yes.
Here and there.
I mean, they also need a basking space.
And actually, I'm very basic to actually know knowledge on aquarium, so I wanted to start with this. As a hobby, we have been keeping it in our home, but I think some things were not going right on which fish to accommodate with which one. So I'm not very familiar with the names also.
Okay.
And so as you're saying, I'm just seeing ki isko ye bolte
Good,
hain.
that's a good thing. Yeah.
But I know feature wise. So yeah, so we generally see that obviously the big fishes are eating the small ones. So I just wanted to maintain an aquarium. There can be little or less fishes, but a healthy environment. And now you've told about sponge filters, so that was making more sense.
Yes.
We used to keep a kind of filter, but I think that was majorly for circulation, as you told.
Something like this.
Yes, yes. And I think it had some light effect also, so we got it.
Okay, that might be just air stone which is giving out bubbles.
I think so. I think that was just for circulation only. Nothing bubbles were coming out of it. But yeah, so I just want to increase my knowledge so that if I'm putting out a next aquarium in my house, I can maintain it well or sustain the fishes well. That's my motive here.
I think you brought out an important topic on the oxygenation or the aeration part, but I'll cover that as well.
So that's my motivation to be here.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chetan. So I was into this hobby since very beginning, since my childhood.
Okay.
So when I was in school, I had few aquariums, and lately I think those days back, 15 years back, there's not much education about it. Not many people would speak about it on a platform and get to know things. But now I think people are evolving. There are many other mediums where you talk about these things. Even I am educated more on this now. Back those days, for me, being a Hindu, from a Hindu family, an aquarium would mean 8 goldfishes, 1 blackfish. And I was in school and I would see, we would put them, and in 3-4 days all of them would float. So done couple of mistakes like that. But later, even I evolved. I also got an arwana on a 4 feet tank. It grew pretty well, but unfortunately, we lost it. I did good with it, where I had another tank to feed it as well, but we didn't have so much of knowledge those days. And back those days, aquarium was something like going to Secunderabad, talking to a few vendors there. They would tell us something, salt, this, that, but it was very basic. What we know now is completely different from what we knew back those days. So now I am a lot freer now, and I have my own ability to take care. So I want to learn more. I want to set up a planted aquarium. That's what I keep asking you, but I want to do it right. I don't want to repeat mistakes. That's why I'm here to learn more. Probably something here I can take home and put it back and then make a better aquarium. That's what I am planning. That's what I'm here for. When things go south, that's I think major thing. And not many people tell. They used to give me some. I remember when my arwana was not feeling well, the local vendor told me to take some tablet from the local chemist.
Okay.
But I don't really know if that really helped. So I think the disaster management is also very important.
Correct.
So I have a very different way of looking at an aquarium. So I started mainly because of him and the other guy. So we started with goldfish, and then we had spent a good time with koya.
Okay.
And now we have cichlids. My way of looking at them is how they behave. Like if I just sit down for half an hour, I just see what they do, how they behave, what are they. Like cichlids are very interesting, right? They build their own caves out of sand and all.
Yes.
That gives me a kind of peace. So that's my way of looking at it. Have something, look at what they are doing, how they are behaving. So I think my way of looking at aquarium is completely different from you guys. So I look at it for stress relief and peace.
Correct.
And it's nice to have it. Just take care of something which is not disturbing you. Fishes are best, they don't disturb you like.
I think anything that's distracting you out of your regular day work, I think that's a relaxing thing.
So that's my way of looking at an aquarium. I am here to just any fish you get it, you should make sure that you don't lose it because of your negligence. So just to get that knowledge, I'm here so that it can have a good time at my home while it stays.
I'm basically a hobbyist, then turned to be a breeder. I do a lot of breeding of geophagous, I do a lot of breeding of discus and some exotic angels.
Okay.
So we have some knowledge, we have been always gaining. But what I feel is that these workshops always emphasize this hobby and we get to know more of things because every person is different, the knowledge is different, so we have to share. And one more thing is important thing is that I want to know a bit of planted thing.
Okay.
Because I put plants to support my fish to reduce the nitrates and ammonia.
Good.
Still in my tanks.
Okay.
Because that is one way of supporting. You're creating colonies of nitrobacters, but still I also put my plants to support them for the oxygenation and to reduce all these ammonia nitrates. But still I want to learn on some planted, so my focus is more on the planted.
Sure.
Other things we are doing.
So as a hobby from my childhood, I am maintaining fishes. So currently I am maintaining 2.5 feet tank.
Okay.
So with a lot of experiences like goldfishes with other fishes, like what you said earlier, like everything was fighting and some was died.
Okay.
So now I am currently maintaining wild type of fishes like with moths and tiger baths.
Okay.
Now it was maintaining well. Other than this, I am maintaining one lotus cement tank with guppies.
Okay.
That also
That's
working well. So that is. So not only this, I want to learn the basics of all. Maintaining is easy, but minimum principles and all we need to learn. No? So for that, maybe this session will be useful for me. That's what I think.
So next thing is about your maintenance, right? So depending on how many fish you have, what kind of filtration you have, also what kind of food you feed your fish. So that actually will determine how often you should change your water. So you guys have discussed, you both have discussed. So I actually, in the COVID times, in the 2019 area, so I just took a challenge of breeding discus. Yeah. So that was my first time. I still have 4 of the babies. They are in quite big adult size now. So why I'm actually talking about them is, so any fish which is at a very small size, at a young stage, so they actually have to be fed lot of food. So whether it be your brine hatch shrimp, the BBS is what you call it. So you can feed those, or you feed lot of high protein food like your goat heart or your beef heart, or any heart is actually a high in protein kind of a food. So we actually have to feed them thrice a day because that's their growth period. So when you do that, the water gets dirty much faster compared to what you would feed when you feed your optimum or any of the dry food. So because of that, I had to do water changes twice in a day, not even a week. So only if we do that will you see the growth in the fish, or else they'll get stunted and maybe hardly half of them will reach their adult size. So it actually depends on your fish, what age it is and what is its growth strategy or pattern like. But if you take like a semi-adult fish, it's totally fine if you do a water change in a week. Yeah. So what you can actually do is, let's say this is your total aquarium. Yeah. So what I actually do even in the store is I remove 50% of the water and then I fill back 50% of the water. Now what I do before and after is what I'll again explain. So before I remove that 50%, I just clean up the glass surface, internally. Maybe I use a glass scrubber, which you get, something like these, so that whatever the brown or the green algae residue which is there on the glass, that will get accumulated in the water. Then I do the siphoning, something like your, the siphon which you would generally use and vacuum out the gravel. So with that you start siphoning out the water. So that way your algae from the glass, also the fish poop, so that will get sucked out and you are moving out into a bucket or in the drain directly. Then now the water that you're going to put in, right? So if you have your bore water and if it doesn't have lot of salt content in it, it's again fine, you can directly add it. But again, sometimes it happens that if you see some deposits on your glass, or you already know your bore has lot of salt content, so try to avoid it as much as possible, because not every fish likes so much of salt content in the water. So something like your moths and what we have here, all the Malawi and African cichlids, they really love that hard water. So if I get bore water, their colors will improve drastically. So it will get very bright colors. So that is the only fish which I know will like your hard water. But most of your plants, your South American, Central American, even for the matter Indian river water fishes, so they all like soft water. So when I say soft water, it's your TDS level. So if you have your RO system at your home, you might have had that TDS meter, and that guy checks whether your machine is working fine or not. So if it has more salt, it's more TDS, lesser salt, less TDS. So your Manjira water has much less TDS, and that's the reason why we use Manjira most of the time. And again, one great precaution that everyone has to take is you have to treat your Manjira water, because people add bleaching powder or chlorine to eradicate any pests that would come in your water. So for that you need to use this chlorine remover. You get it from many brands. Aquatic Remedy has it. You will have few more which are there in much smaller bottles like Chloraway, anti-chlorine, with several such names. So they also give you direction of how much to use for how much of water. Now the real part is how you are supposed to use it. It's not that after you put your water in the tank that you have to add this, because what happens is by the time this particular medication takes effect, your fish might suffer, because that chlorine will already start affecting its gills, its fins and everything, and you will see the red coloration on your fish. So that's actually a great indication that the fish is getting affected by your chlorine. Yeah, any fins which are turning red, gills turning red, that's the biggest sign that there is chlorine in your water and it's going to kill your fish. So best thing to do is take a bucket or a couple of buckets depending on your tank size, add chlorine in that, wait half an hour, 1 hour, couple of hours, then add it. That way the chlorine has, this anti-chlorine has the time to nullify that bleaching powder, chlorine or whatever it has. So that's one way where you can do it fast. Or if you have more time, just let that Manjira water be there for 24 hours or so. That way your because of the temperature of the your tank or your sump or whatever, so that chlorine will evaporate. So that's something you can directly add and that will be totally fine again. So that is with respect to your water changes. So weekly is good, 2 weeks is a stretch, but anything more, again it depends on, if you have just a guppy pair in this, you can leave it for a couple of months, even then it will be fine. So that way, think about your fish stock, your fish poop, your filtration, and then decide your water change. 3 medications that we would use. Yep. One of the most common thing is your blue medicine that you would see. So people think if we add blue medicine, water will get clear. So that's the general perception most of the people have, and even I wouldn't say, but generally some shopkeepers also would probably be saying that. So what you have to keep doing is, this blue medicine is actually an antifungal. Yeah? So if fish has a fin rot kind of a thing or some kind of fungus which will probably develop on their body, so that's when you would use your antifungus. Or maybe if you have your fish which has newly laid eggs, right? So you wouldn't want to lose those eggs to some kind of fungus in your water. So that's the time you will use this antifungus or the blue medicine, which is nothing but your methyl blue in scientific terms. So you have the medicine, they will always have a prescription saying how much to use for how many liters of water. So that's for that purpose. If it's ick, right, that white spot thing, it's good to treat everything in your tank, because if you spot that on one fish, most probably everyone would have already had that by then. So it's good to treat the whole tank. If it's a bacterial infection that I talked about, one fish having a wound, it's better to separate it in a hospital tank, treat it with that respective medication. But don't take it in a mug, put medicine and then put it like as if you are applying Dettol or tincture on your bruise. So don't do that kind of a thing. Same with your salt kind of medication, don't do that way. But it's fine to give a salt bath or a medication bath, but don't keep them for a long period of time is what I would say. So if you want to do that quick bath kind of a medication, keep it for a minute or half a minute and again put it back. So that's just for parasites which are there on the outer surface, like your anchor worms or fish lice which are there. So it will slightly affect those kind of fish. And in fact, this is probably a 4th medication. So salt is a slightly mild medication for that. So if you have ever seen it, so anchor worm is something like hair or probably thicker than your hair, and it will just keep dangling from your fish scales. And people will think the fish is developing some mustache, but you'll probably see them occupying more of the fish body in a few days time. So that again comes up mostly in your warm season, like in your summer season. So that's when the fish keep getting these parasites. So again, for that there is a other medication, something like your anti-parasitic medication. Mostly it is potassium permanganate or some pink color medication is what you would see in the market. So that is something which you use for this anchor worm and also for fish lice. So it's more like a flying saucer if you have seen any time, but it's stuck to your fish flat. Again, you would think it's just a circle which is coming up on your fish like a like a mole or something, but it's actually a lice which is sucking away the blood. So you can treat with medication, or if you are like quite courageous and daring enough, you can take the fish out, take a pincer, a thin forceps kind of a thing, and pluck those parasites out. And treat your tank and treat your fish regularly for that if you see those parasites on your fish. And another big advantage is you don't even need substrate for anubias. You just tie to a rock, you tie to a root or a driftwood, it will grow on that. It will anchor with the roots and it will start growing. And with minimal light, you will see it slowly growing, it will start giving new leaves. So that is like a bulletproof plant you can have. And on the other side, that's probably the costliest plant in the whole hobby again, because it takes time for the farmers to grow such a plant, propagate it, and then sell in the market. So that's why that's probably the highest costing plant for you. Then you also have your ferns. Even ferns are something which you can tie to your wood and rocks. But they're again slightly little tricky than your anubias. They need cool water if they have to live and propagate. And they need good amount of water flow around it. If you have anubias, you don't need such water flow. Even stagnant water, they'll live and grow. But with ferns, you will definitely need good amount of water flow. And slightly around 25 to 26 degrees, it's good. So my store here, it's because I don't have any building above it, so it's very hot during the summers. But if you are living in an apartment, you already have a portion above you, so your water will be around that 26, 27, which is totally fine. So just add your filter, and with that flow, you will have good growth in your Java farm. They will need substrate. Yeah. So these are like rosettes. So they won't get stems, just like ferns. So their plant is just like your peace lily, right? So they have a rosette and leaves come out of it. Yeah? So these will definitely need substrate. A fertile substrate like your aqua soil, or like I have contour soil, which is again based on clay. You have pretty much, you also have this from platinum soil. So any of those will be fine. Or you can start even with bare gravel like golden sand, which I had in my bowls if you have seen. So the better bowls, that's just golden soil, and underneath that is just a half a liter of this fertile aqua soil. So this one will provide the nutrients it requires, and the gravel that you would probably add over that, it's just a capping so that the roots spread. And also at the same time, you are having at least 2-inch height of substrate, right? Because plants will need that thickness so that it develops root. But if you put a very thin layer like ½ inch, 1 inch, it wouldn't be able to get hold of it, and it will start coming out. And you will not be even able to plant the plant in that substrate. So have at least 2-inch, go till maximum 4-inch if you can. Maybe at the back, if you are looking from this side, maybe at this position at the back, you can go until 4-inch height, but after 4-inch you won't need more height than that. So whatever be the tank height, they will get to that, because they can even grow until 10 feet length. So it just needs that surface of light coming in, bright light. It can spread to any extent. So definitely a background. So somewhere here is where you would prefer having it, and it will definitely need a lot of trimming if you have to maintain it. Because right now if you look at the plant, this is the main plant and this is a runner, and the runner is already having a runner. So this plant is just like 4 days in my aquarium coming from the farm. So that's how prolific it keeps growing. It's Vallisneria, so it's quite sturdy in respect to the temperatures as well. So if you have seen closely the paludarium there, on the sides of those plant which I have immersed, so I have actually attached this Christmas moss. So it's actually even growing out of water, in fact. So that's how hardy it is. And then you also have Java moss, but that's a bit tricky to grow because it doesn't have any shape or structure. It just keeps getting some fronds and all. But Christmas moss looks good. Have this vertical thing, like it's just like a rose plant for that matter, and it'll keep getting leaves and also stems. just like a rose plant. And just like a rose plant, you can trim it, plant it again at a different place. But you shouldn't be trimming a leaf, because if you trim a leaf, it's as good as the leaf is dead. So remove the whole leaf itself. And this is nice to have. So yeah, especially not minerals, but not more of calcium and magnesium, because that will avoid the exchange of other minerals and carbon from the water. But if you add additional nitrate and phosphate, it will help them, but not additional magnesium and calcium.
So most of the planted tanks, you have to put the fish which do well in the low temperatures.
Yes, that will be a very good advantage.
So
Tetras, not everything, because tetras won't like temperature below 24. But they'll be able to manage if you slowly decrease it. Maybe if you start somewhere in winter and you keep prolonging it, I think that'll be totally fine. But if you suddenly decrease, tetras will again be prone to ick and everything. But that's fine. So if you want to have a planted tank with discus, it's only anubias and ferns that you can have, and maybe cryptocorynes. From 27 they'll start deteriorating. So that 24 to 27 is like a magic range. So you maintain that, and without adding CO2, which is probably a next level of planted aquarium. So without doing that, you should be able to maintain it. Because the prime reason is the lower your water temperature, it will have more capacity to retain any gas, be it carbon dioxide, be it oxygen. So that way, if it is cooler, it will have more carbon dioxide in it, which it is probably absorbing from your air and atmosphere. So that way it will accumulate and it will help out the plant. If summer comes in, I have to pump in more CO2 into the two high-tech setup which I have there. So in the winter season, I can get away with lower concentration, but in summers I have to increase this floating place. So generally people would add it in their lotus ponds as well. I think Salvinia is known to even absorb oil film from the water. So there was one kid who came for his school project. So he was asking me for Salvinia natans. That's actually the plant full scientific name. So he needed that plant to demonstrate in his school exhibition how that plant absorbs oil from water. So and it works both ways. So it works in sewage industry where you do this particular process, and also in your aquarium or in your lily pond or stuff like that. PPM or not more, where you have a planted aquarium and you also are able to grow your plants, and now you want to make it look a bit more, nature looking or close to nature. So that's where your aquascaping concept comes in. So you try to arrange your rocks, you arrange your wood so that it look aesthetically pleasing. And at the same time, you can use it to grow your java fern, your anubias, you can tie it on it. You can tie your moss on that and it will look a bit more natural. Like if you see that wall there in the backdrop, it has that black layer, which probably in the rainy season it would have looked fully green. So you will probably get that effect in your aquarium. So that way, that is how you can use your aquascaping equipment like your rocks or liquid. And also to an extent you can use that such a way that your substrate doesn't move out. So if you make a small island kind of a thing and put your substrate only in that way your substrate doesn't come out, and the other place you can put some cosmetic sand or something. So it's the same concept that I have in my 3 feet planted tank. So in the center I have the substrate and plants. Around that I have just put sand so that fish can roam about there, and at the same time I only use a little amount of substrate because again costs me a lot, costs you a lot as well. So that way you can build something in budget. But if you have that, you can always fully have a 3-inch layer throughout your tank and you can grow plant in every nook and corner. put a basic gravel kind of thing, that's when you will have to get a good source of water, low TDS, low pH around 7, so that plants grow well in that. So this has these multiple benefits. Again, neutral, so they don't increase the pH nor the TDS. So that's what I call as neutral. And the beauty I would talk about is the texture that it has, or the grooves that it has, and the shapes as well. So if you have some moss or something, they might go settle in that. If you have small ferns, you can probably plug them somewhere. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that will actually help in two ways. So if you put the crate, like you said, if suppose suddenly, by mistake my hand slips and it falls down, so it's a safety net for me. Secondly, I can get some elevation, because I'm not only planning to just grow plants, I want to give some elevation. So I feel, hey, if the rock is at this height, maybe it will look like a waterfall kind of a thing, or a plant flowing down. So that will give you elevation as well. So it serves two purposes. And thirdly, if you have that mesh, what happens is it will hold that substrate. So instead of the substrate leaking out from these gaps, even after I put it here, if you probably come and look at from this side, so there is a slight gap, and this substrate can actually leak out from here and it will spread on the sand. Same thing happened with my tank there. Because of that, you will see quite a lot of substrate in the open area, which looks not so good. But again, it's again your aesthetic concern. If you don't want that to happen, good. But if you're just looking at growing plants today, I think it's totally fine. So I just created that small island that I was talking about, right? So I want to fill that now with my aqua soil, so that I get a 2-inch or higher level. So that's where I'll be planting my plants. And all this space here, I'll just leave it vacant. Yeah. If you wanted to do it fully throughout, you are most welcome. But just for this demo purpose, I want to keep it fast and simple. So that's why I'm making it a smaller place. Yeah. But filling up the water and everything, that generally takes a lot of time. So I'm just trying to measure how many liters it's going to cost you or me. So this is like 1 liter. You can add a layer of 1/2 inch or 1 inch, that's totally fine. But don't go any thinner than that, because your bottom glass will show up all the time. Now this is actually sand called Nile sand. If you pick river sand, you will get a lot of black particles, but this is actually very single tone kind of a color. So it's mostly green, not green, yellow and orangish shade. Nile, N-I-L-E, the Nile river. No, in a planted tank like this, you don't need to, because this is actually quite clean soil, and aqua soil you never would want to clean, because more you clean, the more nutrients goes away from the soil. Yeah. If you clean it, that's actually the powerhouse. It has the nutrients. So if you clean it, the nutrients go away, which you don't want. The sand you can clean, because sand is always inert, neutral. So it doesn't increase TDS, add nutrients or anything. Yeah. Yeah. After you do a water change, it will slowly subside. But again, that's good thing for your plants. So plants like ammonia-based, soluble, which is there in your water. So even the plants will grow very fast. And if you don't have a lot of plants, you'll see something like green water in your tank. So green water is again a algae or a microorganism kind of thing that will like the nutrients and also your light. Yep. So if your plants are not absorbing it, that algae is what will grow and absorb it. So this is your plant and this is your forceps. So what you do is you hold it such a way that your plant and your forceps are like parallel, right? So that when you put it in, it gets directly inside, and when you release this forceps, it gets stayed in it. So this is a crypt, so I'll probably make it a mid-ground or a foreground because this is probably still stay small, and maybe in front of it I'll add alba. So I put it in now. I'll grow as low as possible. So just to help yourself, hold it with your index finger and release this thing out, and slowly if you pull it out, this will stay there. Now just for again safety, just try to fill it up and your plant is going to stay there. If you had done this with water, like you were asking, so you'll have much tough time. So the plant will keep floating all the time. You won't have that 100% surety that it will stay there. Sorry? Yeah, if there was water inside, yeah, your plant would have started floating even before you did this thing. So I'll quickly plant all of them. Can you just remove it from? Okay, the crypt alba, we'll try it on the foreground, or just go the plain old with your finger. So I'll show you with a finger how you can do it. So go with your index finger and your thumb upwards. So go deep and just leave out the index finger. And then while you're coming out, just push the soil back so that it stays there. But with the forceps, you can go deeper and it will stay more intact. Is that a thinner one? Yeah, this will go fast. You can just put that down. Okay, pot here this way and look the same. So try to place the leaf away from the other plants, because when you fill your water, just so that, because these are buoyant, yeah, if it is somewhere inside this, it will pull the other plant as well. So just be careful about that. It will fill up your tank faster before you can start maintaining them. No? Cost. 450. Okay, so I think you should be done. So if we have time, I can slowly start filling with water. But how is your schedule like? You guys have time? You can do that as well. Malli drain out chestam. Generally, previous workshops lo, I mean, what we used to do is, what we used to do is we used to auction it out.
Okay.
Yeah. 1, 2, and this, it would have been good if, I have plants still here, because when I put it here, this bend is coming somewhere here. So this is a good place to put, because when you bend it, you can come until this point. And I would rather put somewhere here. So what happens is, the light is actually falling from this angle into here and towards the back. So what happens is, when your fish moves from here, so the light will reflect here and then it will fall into your eye. So that way you see the fish colors more vibrantly here. Because generally I see people, they put a light here at the back and it will throw light on your face. That's not what you want, right? Because if you have to see their colors, the light should fall on the fish and then reflect onto your eyes. So try to have it somewhere here at the sweet spot, then slowly tilt it towards the plants. And one great advantage with this flexible thing is, suppose say you are getting algae, your glass is covered with that brown stuff. Mostly it's because of highlight. So just raise it a bit higher so that the light intensity reduces. Again a bit higher. So based on that, you can just fine tune it and change the height. And if you think there is a lot of red plants, you want to have some very tough growing plants, make it much closer to the water and you can do it. So this is more like a gooseneck adjustable light. You also get those full bar kind of light. So even those you can raise a bit higher, reduce, but this is slightly more flexible. So for an island scape, this is more suitable because you can put directly there. And if I had used that bar kind of light, what would happen is it would spread the light all over the place where you don't need that. So this is one flexibility you will get. Yes, this is actually a planted aquarium. So it's quite bright. It's the two.
They use it 6,500.
Yeah. So they use both. No, they use both. So they have the 6500 in white, and if you see, there is two color tones in that. So there is one white and one blue. So if you see it in the 3 feet tank, you will see multiple. I mean, those two colors in that.
Should we use the same water?
If you want to keep your fish immediately, then you would better carry the same water without moving the substrate and everything. It's better to carry it directly. Yeah, do a water change maybe on a 7th day, but you should look at the indicator. You should see that cloudy water in that 5-week period.
Subscribe to our channel, click the bell icon and select all.